Okay, I have this refillable journal and I want to switch it up. I want to switch my cover to have this be the outside and the green be the inside. So it's really easy. These are elastic, and so I can easily trim them off and then replace them. So all we do is we're just going to snip that off, and then in the middle we will go ahead and cut those just like that. If you want to reuse the beads, you can. And then we will remove those. Your signatures can stay. All right, so it's as simple as flipping it over, and then we're gonna restring the elastic. So now this is gonna be your outside, and the green is gonna be your inside. So I am gonna go ahead and use the navy blue elastic and do the same restringing process. So I've got my journal cover there. I'm gonna use one of the signatures as my guide. I'm gonna use that same bead that I had already had, and then we're gonna go ahead and cut our elastic. So if you watched our original video of how this is made, then you'll know that the elastic I just lay across the top and just have some of it hanging off on each side. Oop, wowza. Some of it off on each side, and now I dropped my elastic. What a mess. Okay. Hanging off on each side, and then I cut 3 strings because I have 3 different holes for mine. If you have 1 or if you have 2, then just do the 1 string. Okay, so I've got my elastic cut. I'm gonna go ahead, if you're gonna do a bead, go ahead and thread your bead. If you're not, then you don't have to do that, but I'm just gonna go ahead and slide that underneath, and then I'm gonna feed the elastic up through that first hole on the top and feed it up through the first hole on the bottom, just like that. And then I'm going to use my signature as how tight I want to tie that. And we're going to go ahead and tie that. You want it to be tight, but you don't want it to be too tight. You want to have it some give, but tight enough to hold your different signatures in your journal. And then you can trim off the excess, or you can keep these long and have them hanging down and add beads if you want. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my second elastic, and I'm going to feed it through that bead, and then we're going to go through the second hole and through the second hole here, and flip it over, and we're going to tie that. And once you do it a couple times, you kind of get the hang of like how tight you want your elastic. And if you do it and it just doesn't, it's not as tight as you want it to be, then just go ahead and snip it off and then try again. And the third one, we're just going to go ahead and go through that bead and through the bottom hole and through the top hole. And then flip it over and tie it tight. Just like that, and trim off any excess. Okay, so you've got those done. Now, if you didn't have the center bead, and you can just go all the way across, you don't have to have a closure, like a center bead in here if you don't want to. You don't have to have something like this. You can do a series of beads. You can do strung beads, you can do ribbon, as long as it's got some stretch to it and can hold your signatures. That's what we're looking for. Okay, and so you've got your signatures, and we're just gonna put them back into the journal. like that. And just like that. And then put that one there. Go ahead and take out your signature guide. And then we have it strung now. And we can do the closure like that. And again, like these are all brand new signatures. These were all lined. If you make your own, we have different signature packs on ahouseofbooks.com to make like a bunch of different vintage sheets and printed sheets that work really well depending on what style journaling you're doing. You can purchase those and make different signatures. You can do blank signatures, lined signatures, dot grid, anything that you want. And these are all empty right now, but as I add embellishments, because I tend to add like pockets and different embellishments, the journal right now, it looks like it's not full, but as I add embellishments to my journal, you'll see that it'll have enough space to hold anything as the journal gets thicker. Okay. So I want to keep that in mind when I'm doing my closure as well. So you can reuse these beads if you wanted to, which I'm going to, since it's already made for me. And I'm just going to trim those so they're ready to go. And then I'm going to take my, I was thinking I would do navy blue, but now maybe, what if we did a different color? Yeah, I'll do navy blue. Just let's make it easy. You don't want to watch me dig through the elastic bin. If you have elastic laying around, go ahead and use that. If you have some vintage elastic, obviously that's what we recommend. Otherwise, you can get assorted colors of elastic, and this is elastic cord that I'm using. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it through the grommet, and then because I know that because of my style of journaling, I'm gonna add embellishments and this journal is gonna get thicker. I don't wanna make this closure too tight because I want it to be able to grow along with my journal, but it also needs to be tight enough to hold it nicely. So depending on the style of journaling that you do, keep that in mind when you're making your closure. If you're just doing art or sketching or whatever, and you're not gonna add bulk to the journal, then you can go ahead and make it tight right away. It just depends on what you plan on using it for. Okay, so I have my beads. We're just gonna go ahead and restring the beads. If you wanna switch up your beads, you can. You can do charms. You can do whatever you want. But these are the beads that were on there and I liked them, so we're just gonna make it easy. A lot of times we find like vintage beads and vintage charms and vintage jewelry that I like to add just to give it a little more character. So if you're ever hunting for vintage jewelry, you can check out our website or go to your local thrift store, antique store, and see if you can find some things that will match your journaling style. So I've got the beads in there now, and I'm just gonna go ahead and tie a double knot. If the beads that you find have a smaller hole, then you can go ahead and string your cord, your elastic cord, through a sewing needle and string your beads that way. It makes it a little bit easier to pull that cord through a smaller hole. And then we're just gonna go ahead and string the other one. This cord, you can use cord, you can use like an elastic ribbon. You can do a completely different closure with, like, if you go on our Pinterest, we have a lot of different closure ideas. There's a whole board dedicated to journal closure ideas, and so you can check that out if you want to try something different other than the one that I'm doing today as well. Okay, so we've got our beads restrung. Just gonna go ahead and tie that double knot. Just like that, and we'll trim off the end. And it is as simple as that to switch out your refillable journal. This one, the inside cover was made with vintage fabric, but a lot of our journals are made with vintage wallpaper, and so it's typically like a floral pattern or a vintage wallpaper pattern on the inside, and sometimes it's nice to just switch it up for something different, and just like that. And you can switch out your inserts, and it's as easy as that.